Hey developers, today we're going to look at Vue.js and we're going to look at how to unlock the full power of JavaScript inside our Vue.js templates using the render function. So we're going to look at an alternative of using Vue.js templates. Stay tuned all the way to the end to find out how that works. All right, before we begin, let me just remind you guys that I have a book out called Vue.js in Action, and it's actually in early access from Manning. And what that means is that you can buy it today and you can get the first 7 chapters. I'll be updating it every single month, and you'll be getting all the information about Vue.js that you should have. So I go everything from introducing the Vue instance, forms, conditionals, loops, working with components, advanced components, animations, mix-ins, the render function that we'll talk about today, Vuex, the router. So it goes over a lot. So just stay tuned. If you buy it today, you'll get these new updates as I complete them. So it's an amazing deal. I would check it out. So that's the Vue.js in Action book from Manning that I have written, with some help from another co-author called Ben Listwan. So with that said, let's take a look what we're creating today. So we're going to use what's called the render function in Vue.js to create our template. So if you don't know that in Vue.js, normally there's quite a few ways of adding data or adding HTML to your Vue.js application. One of the common ways is to use a template. And we can actually create that using a render function, and that kind of gives us the full power of JavaScript. And it's very similar to JSX. I actually did a video on how you can add JSX to your Vue.js project. That is a little bit different. So this is just one way of doing it through Vue.js. So what we're going to do is we're going to create this app. All it's going to say is hello world, and we're going to pass in a property to it called Erik, and then it's going to display Erik. And when you click on it, just for the heck of it, we'll add a click event to just kind of show how that works. So here's the app right now. There's nothing there. So I went ahead and just created like a quick dummy file here. All it has is the script tag for the Vue.js, and it actually has the bootstrap, just if we want to do some styling. And so what we need to do is in our script, we're going to do new Vue. And first we're going to give it an EL, and this is where it's kind of like the entry point for the elements or app. And just to make sure it's working, we're going to add this data function, and the data function is going to return, and we're going to call it welcome, and we'll call it hello world. And just to make sure it's working, we're going to put in a div id equals app, and inside there we'll have our welcome. And we'll save it, and we'll make this an H1 just to show it off a little easier. There it is. So we definitely see the hello world there, so we know the Vue.js is working. You can see the consoles down here. We can also say it's in development mode, so we know it's working here. So instead of using this Vue.js instance, let's delete the data. And we're going to just put this all in one line. And so to create any sort of Vue application, you have to have a root Vue.js instance, which we have right here. So we want to create a global component. So to do that, we're going to do vue.component, and then we're going to name it. We're going to call it let's call it hello-world. And then inside the Vue component itself is where we're going to, which we'll have to do here. And this is where we're going to put all our information for the Vue component itself. So let's create a data function here. So we'll create data, and inside the data function, we're going to have an object. We're going to return an object, and then so we're going to have a data object, and we're going to return, and we can have a message here, and we're going to call it welcome. And let's delete this welcome here, and we can do something like this. We'll have this hello world, and normally we would do something like this. We would have a template here, and then we can do string interpolation, and then we can display the message. So we could do something like this, message. If we save that and make sure that we have a comma here and we refresh it, you see here's our welcome at the top. So it's basically doing the same thing now that we have this view, this global component here. So one thing we could do to make this a little simpler is first we're going to delete this app at the top. Now if you save this, you're going to get an error because it says cannot find element app. You could do this. I can put ID equals app here into the actual component, and if we resave it, then it works again. So we actually don't have to have it surrounding that div tag. As long as we have the ID app on the component, the global component, it will work. So instead of using this template here, let's see if we can do use a render function. So I'm going to delete this template, and I'm going to use something called render. And then inside this render function, it has one argument, and that's sometimes it's known as h. Other times it's known as create element. And this is all in the official guides too, if you have any questions. So inside the render element here, we can we can basically virtually create the DOM. In other words, this will be the virtual DOM. And then you have V nodes, which are virtual nodes underneath it. So you can construct your template this way. So we would you always have to return the create element, and then inside the create element you have some arguments. So the first argument is going to be the tag, and then the next argument is optional, and that's the attributes, and then the last argument is the text. It could be a string, which is the text for the div tag, or for the h1 tag, or you can actually create an array of other elements. So this would be kind of like a tree. So you would actually do another create element here and create another tag inside of it. But we won't do that today to keep it simple. So let's say we have an h1 tag here, and we want to just have it say hello world. So we're going to have it really simple here. Let's save it. There it is, hello world. So as you can see here, we've created this element. Now it's returning this hello world. We can also access the message, so we can do this dot message instead. Now it says welcome. So now we're just switching it out between this dot message just from the data object, or we can just type in whatever we want here. So let's say we wanted to use some props. So let's go ahead and define a prop for here. So if you remember correctly, to do props, you have to have props here, and then you have to declare each props. And what props are is these are elements that you're passing into the component. So we're going to pass in something called name. So let's take a look. So now we can do this. We can do name equals, and then we can put Erik. And if you remember from here, we have hello world Erik. So let's change this message here to hello world in a space. And we're going to have this dot message plus this dot name. And what this will do is it'll concatenate the this dot message, which is the hello world, with this dot name, which is the passed in props, which equals Erik. So we should see hello world Erik. There it is, hello world Erik. So we're almost there, but one thing we notice in this one is that you can center it, and it has a click event attached to it. So how do we do that? So what I mentioned before, there's actually a hidden, inside this create element, there's an optional argument in the middle, which looks like this. This is where we can put in our attributes. So first, let's see if we can notice from the original one that it's centered. Let's see if we can center it. So I'm just going to make this on a new line, and I'm going to put here. So we can do something like this. We can do class, and then we can give it the class name. Now, since we're using center, it's text center, I think. and Bootstrap. So since we're using Bootstrap, what we're going to say is add this class attribute to the h1 tag and put in text center to it. So let's see what that does. All right, so you can see it moved over a little bit to the right, and if we look at the DOM, we can see now it has this class equals text-center in it, which is perfect. But we can add more than one attribute, so we just need to put a comma here. And we can also put in a click event. So to do that, we have to type in on, which is a kind of special thing that it knows that you're using click events. And then we define all the click events here. So we can do click, we can pass in the click event here, and then let's do alert box. So we'll do clicked. So I'm gonna save it and reload it. So now if we click on it, now we get the clicked box up here. So we know that it's working. So this page says clicked. So the last thing we wanted to do is, just for the heck of it, we wanted to select the h1 header tag. So we know that the header tag now is hard-coded as 1, but what happens if we want it to be dynamic and we want to pass it in from the component? So that's pretty easy. We can create another attribute here. So here's one way of doing it. I'll show you two ways. So I can create another prop. We'll call it level, and then we'll put in a number 1. Then, since it's a new property, we have to come down here and put in level. That way it's recognized. And then right here, this h1, we can actually do h1 h plus, well, we can probably just interpret it. We can do h, and then this, and we'll call it this dot level, and we'll save it. So if we reload it, it still works the same, but let's say we put this level to 5 and save it. You can see it's a lot smaller now. So now instead of having an h1 tag there, if we look at it, it's actually an h5 tag. So that's one simple way of doing it. So now it's dynamically set. One other thing that you could do too is you can actually put the one in here. And if you remember from a previous video, I talked about scope slots. To do a slot scope, you can access it using, you can actually access it using this parameter. It's this, instead of this dot level, it's this dot slots dot default, and it's an array dot text. So this will take the default slot, which is here, which is 1, and then put it in here. So if we save that, we can see here it's back to 1. Let's say we put this to 4. Let's do 4, and we save it. Now it's a little smaller. You can see here, I don't know if you can see it, my head's in the way, it says 4. So that's a really simple way of using the render function. So if you guys like this, I'll do another video on how to do binding, how to do your v4, because you don't have access when you're using it this way. You don't have access to your vbind, your v4, your vif. Vif will be probably pretty easy to do, but there are ways of doing that inside using the render function that is closer to JavaScript. So if you guys are interested, leave a comment below. Let me know you're interested in these type of videos, and I'll go really in depth inside this render function and show you all the cool things you can do with it. Perhaps though, if I would also recommend, if you are looking for this really close to the level JavaScript integrated in with your HTML like we're doing here, another great way of working with this is use something called JSX. I did a video on it. JSX, Vue.js has a plugin for JSX that works really well. It doesn't do everything that JSX can do, but it's really similar. So I would take a look at that. So thank you for watching this video. If you like these videos, please click that subscribe button. And since I mentioned my book, and since you are a loyal listener, and hopefully you've watched the whole video, I am going to give a book away. And I'm going to do it this way. If you leave a comment below with the reason why you like Vue.js, I'm just going to read all the different versions, and I'm just going to pick the one I like. And I will give you a free copy of the book. And I'll probably let you guys know in about a week. So leave a comment below with why you like Vue.js, and you might be able to get a free copy of my Vue.js in Action book. Thanks, everybody. Take care.